issues, where we have also health-related issues and within Nigeria, and also create awareness and platform for the young people to get to know about what is happening around the world in the areas of environmental and health issues. So let's go straight to our guest and our topic for this webinar. This webinar is living in harmony with the ecosystem. And before we go straight to our guest, what she has for us today, I want to read her profile. I said her name is Ibukoluwa Balogun, and she usually calls herself insect conservationist. Yes, and I'm also going to call her insect conservationist because she has a doctorate. She's a doctorate candidate in the field of conservation ecology at the University of Stellenbosch, and our research focus has been majorly based on conservation of insects in urban and agricultural landscapes. Particularly, she's interested in making sure that everyone around her is interested in conserving the environment. And this has prompted her to share her conservation stories on social media and different platforms, and also volunteer in various environmental clubs. Presently, Ms. Ibukoluwa is the African Regional Coordinator for the Young Professional Task Force of Species Survivor Commission of the IUCN. And she's a book lover and a voracious reader. This is evident in her pursuits in life, and her main core focus principle and hobby is around reading. And she's a lover of books and has taken a lot of desires in reading, and this has actually geared her towards skills and activities around reading, and increased her creativity level, where she does fashion designing, decoration, and several do-it-yourselves. With our digital round innovation, let's welcome Mrs. Ibukoluwa Balogun into our March webinar this evening. Thank you. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. It's actually the real Mrs. Balogun here, my mom, and I want to thank my mom for being on this call. And I'm actually still a miss. Yes, thank you. So I'll be going right into it now and sharing my screen. So I'll be sharing my screen now. Yes.
Okay.
So I don't know if I can start now.
Yes, you can. You can start, please. Thank you.
So the topic is living in harmony with the ecosystem, and you might ask that why this topic. The reason why we are doing this topic is because people tend to think that we humans are different from the ecosystem. We are a different entity. We are different. We are just we are the ones that control everything. Which in a way, yes, we are at the hierarchy of the food web, or we are at the higher level. But at the end of the day, the way they say respect is reciprocal. That's something that we must also show to the environment, because the environment is not something that if you do anyhow, it will still respect you, it will still give you what you want. It is not like that. So we definitely have to live in harmony with the ecosystem. So I'm going to start this and I'm going to be taking it one by one and all the keywords in this topic. So we'll start with what is the ecosystem really? And the ecosystem is simply interactions. It's simply interactions. The ecosystem is simply interactions, like every interaction that occurs in the environment between, living and non-living things. And that's why I'm showing you this lovely kid fishing. The lovely kid is fishing, but for this kid to get this fish, a lot of things have to be in play for him to get this fish. If it's a fresh river fish, the fresh river has to be in a certain salinity. It must be, the pH, the TDS, total dissolved solids. The fresh water must be in a certain condition for him to be able to get this fish. So we see that there are different things interacting to see the things we see on the earth. So for instance, you want to eat your breakfast. You might think that your breakfast is just cereal and milk. But for that cereal and milk you want to take, different underlying things have occurred for you to get that cereal and milk. So basically, the ecosystem is that interaction. It is not just you eating cereal and milk. It is all the interactions that occur to ensure that you eat your cereal and milk. And that's just like, in a baseline explanation, so that I don't go too scientific. Then now, what is living? If anybody has done biology or basic science or everything, you hear the thing called Mr. Niger D. Mr. Niger D, movement, because every living thing must move, we must respire, we must eat, because food is essential. You must, there's irritability or sensitivity. You are sensitive to what is happening. Then there's growth, excretion, reproduction. These days, they've even added 2 others in the updated biology textbook. They've added extra 2 to it. So it's no longer just Mr. Niger D. There are others added to it. And you see that, living involves all these things. And one thing I want you to see is that for all of this living to occur, the ecosystem is involved. So say you want to move now. You want to move from one place to another. You must walk on the earth. You must run on the earth. You must drive on the earth. Even if you are flying in the clouds. So we see that in a way, we are not as isolated from the ecosystem as we think. You want to respire, you're respiring, breathing in oxygen, breathing out carbon dioxide. Your oxygen is flown with your circulatory system, your blood. So we can see also, again, we are not as isolated. And if there's anything I want everybody to know today, one key thing is that we are not as isolated from the environment as we think. Please, if at any point you can't hear me or can't see my screen, please let me know. And so if you look at all of these two, reproduction, excretion, for excretion, in fact, look at the development of the toilets. From the pit latrine to the toilet, everything involved interaction with the environment. So there is nobody who hasn't interacted with the environment. There is nobody who is in touch with the ecosystem. So why live as if there is no ecosystem? That's a question that we need to ask ourselves. Now, this is the stages of, a human being from fetus to adulthood. The fetus, the baby, the toddler, the preschooler, the primary school boy, and adolescents and adults. And I decided to show us some of the things that are done within this age. During your childhood, you play, you eat, you wear clothes, you go out with friends, you don't think about all of these responsibilities. But whatsoever is being done in childhood, there's an interaction. Again, what clothes are you wearing? If you are wearing a natural fiber clothes made from wool, wool is made from sheep. If you are wearing cotton, cotton is made from cotton plants. If you are wearing silk, silk is spun from an insect. What food are you eating? There's no food you eat that is not planted. And whatsoever is planted needs nitrogen, it needs all of those things to grow. In fact, now we add additional fertilizer. We have the NPK fertilizer. So now even a child that isn't, making any conscious responsibility is interacting with the environment. In our teenage years now, there's more responsibility. You are partying, you are going to school, you have friends, peer pressure, everything. You still interact with the environment. And you might start even now intentionally doing things that harm the environment. Now, basically, I just wanted to see what happens when you are living with the ecosystem without harmony. You just live your life. As an adult, you work. Depending on if you are living without consciousness of the ecosystem or in harmony with the ecosystem, as you are working, you are generating e-waste, you are generating fiber waste, you are generating every kind of waste. You are using gadgets, and if I'm not shading any brand, and I'm not going to talk any brand. If you are using a popular brand of phone, every year they release an upgraded one. Even though there are no difference there, you keep buying and buying and buying and buying, not thinking of how this affects the environment. You farm, you build your houses, you cut down timber, you cut down this, Those are ways we interact with the ecosystem if we don't think of living consciously in harmony with the ecosystem. At old age, now you are older, you might not consciously harm the environment, but there are habits that have grown over time. How do you dispose your refuse? How do you burn your refuse? Some of them still have farms, but one way or the other, like I said again, if there's anything you want to take home, is that there is no how we live in isolation from this environment, and that is why we must take care of it. And I think that is why what you people are doing at Clan is very important, because we have to take care of our environment. Now, I typically tend to use this analogy. This is one of my favorite analogy I like to use. Whether we like it or not, whether we are conscious of it or not, we humans and the ecosystem interact. So if you see this intact ball, humans, ecosystem interacting, there is a balance here. Now, if we live without harmony, it seems as if we humans are on top, we are on top of the world, we are doing what we want. But the truth is, what supports all the various activities is broken. So now, for instance, you think you're on top of the world, you have your factories, you have a lot of things, but you forget that the air you breathe in is now polluted because you didn't live in harmony. So the ball is broken. The other part of it cannot support as much anymore. There's no harmony. You are not breathing polluted air because of your actions. Take, for instance, again, urbanization. Because of urbanization, we want fine houses, and there's nothing wrong with any of these things. But there is a way to use the environment. There's nothing wrong with building houses. There's nothing wrong with owning cars, but there's a way to do these things. Now you build a house, you stay in an urbanized area, very urbanized. But what is supposed to support your things are no longer there. For instance, a lot of urbanized area, biodiversity is low. Sometimes there are not even trees. So how is your oxygen going to be filtered? Because the presence of plants helps us to have filtered oxygen, clean oxygen, because of the way plants, plant is like the reverse of what we humans and animals do, where they, in quotes, in our language, they breathe in carbon dioxide and exhale oxygen in their photosynthesis process. So this is, without harmony, the ball is scattered, the ball is shattered. What should support our daily activities is not there, but we don't know because we think again that we are on top. So I'm going to go further. Now, what do we do to live in harmony with the ecosystem? I know this is where most of us have been waiting for. But first, I want to tell us what the ecosystem can offer in this partnership. We know we always hear what people say, ecosystem is good, but what exactly is the ecosystem providing? Usually, scientifically, they say the ecosystem provides 4 core services in something called ecosystem services. The ecosystem supports, the ecosystem provides, the ecosystem regulates, and there are even also cultural things that the ecosystem provides for us. For instance, for supporting, the ecosystem gives us, biodiversity, our different animals, insects, and all of those things are because of the ecosystem. If you see, and another thing people tend to think is because, you don't need this thing. I will talk about my favorite thing to say, that's insects. Insects, for instance, are used in pollination. And simply put, the plants as we know it cannot, go through reproduction like human beings. Human beings, boy meets girl, girl meets boy, you say, okay, let's, begin to date and whatever, and you consummate your relationship and have kids. But plants cannot go through that process. They don't talk. Their movement is different from ours. They move on the spot. So how does the female reproductive part and the male reproductive part want to meet? Some plants have that on the same plant such that there's both male and female, and it is easier for them to self-pollinate. But some don't have it, and they now need external things to ensure that what is in the anther, which is the male reproductive part, which is the pollen, can move to the ovary. to the stigma to go and fertilize the ovary. And what helps that is wind, water, and animals. And animals take the larger share, of which of animals, insects do the most things. But you know, for us now, we are very quick. There's too much insects here. Fleet everywhere. Just cancel all the insects. But insects are doing something. We are very quick to say, you know, some are even superstitious. Why is this kind of plant here? What is this tree doing? Maybe it's harboring witches or something. Cut all the trees away. But those are supporting things. So biodiversity, photosynthesis, your plant, and photosynthesis is so essential. Without photosynthesis, you won't have a green plant. You won't have a proper plant. And without that photosynthesis, the oxygen we are even breathing will not be, you know, as clean, as effective as more. Then there's soil formation. There's food. If there's no plant, you can't eat. Now imagine the pollination that you say you do not want. Without that pollination now, there's no food. And that brings me to what the ecosystem provides. The ecosystem provides food for us. The ecosystem provides water, fish. The ecosystem provides cool temperature for us. If there's too much heat, go and stay under, you know, very good tree. All those big trees with big branches, it will be blowing your body. The ecosystem also regulates things. You know, all these things that they taught us when we were in basic science. Your water cycle, carbon cycle, all of those things. It is because of ecosystem steps, and they are now cultural things to it. Tourism. If your ecosystem services, you know, are good, there's tourism, people will flock there. The reason why a lot of people are going to maybe Maldives or Zanzibar or all those places, because their city is fine. They've not cut, their beaches are clean. Those are ecosystem services. That's why people will go there. That's why we spend money, save money to go to Zanzibar. That's why we save money to go and do honeymoon in Maldives. Then there's also, you know, pleasant sights. And, you know, these four things, they are not standalone. They are interdependent on each other. So now again, I'll go to now what humans offer in this partnership. And I'm going to play this video for us. It's a very short video, which I saw on Facebook. And I'm just going to play that right now. Okay, seems I'm not getting how to play this thing. It's not playing. All right. Okay, I'll just explain what that video is about. The video is basically, you know, this whale is covered with barnacles, and because it is used, the whale already knows that people come to this part of the ocean. So the whale swam to where people are, and people are then removing the barnacles from the body of the whale. Why most of us cannot do something like this? Why most of us cannot do something like this? There are other things we can do. This is just an example of, you know, a big grandiose thing we can do. We can offer in this partnership. And apparently, I was reading comments, this kind of thing goes on regularly in this part of the ocean. So we'll be going to our next slides, where we'll now begin to see. Yes, please.
Maybe you can use escape to see if the video will play or something.
All right.
We'd like to watch it.
Okay, I've even seen it. It came up. Okay, so. So you can see the man removing all the barnacles from the.
Oh, damn. One ball man to another. Oh my God.
So what we have just seen is the whale, and we can see how that partnership worked out. The whale was happy, the people were happy, everybody were happy for with what's just happened. So now that's why all of us might not be able to, take care of a whale or take care of an animal. There are other practical things we can do, that enables us to live in harmony with the ecosystem. And I'll mention two things. While these also are not still everyday things, there are things we can do. You can have a small garden in your house. I know not everybody live in a place where they can have gardens, but if you can, why not? Plant indigenous plants, plant your herbs, plant vegetables. You can, and the bonus of this is, like I said, one thing living in harmony with the ecosystem does is it benefits both of us. So it's a partnership. Really, we are both benefited. So plant vegetables, plant herbs, you eat fresh food, plant for various seasons, use mulch, dry wood. Then also, use plant-based pesticides, plants in just things that sometimes also have a small water trench for also the beneficial insects to come, and sprinkle salt on the soil on some part to create a salt lake, so that this can be beneficial for insects, the pollinators to come around. And the result of doing something like this is it will create a beautiful garden and a beautiful pollinator garden for you, because you will typically see pollinators like bees, like butterflies flocking to your garden if you can be able to achieve this. Our indigenous plants are also colorful. You can find different colorful ones. Pollinators, for instance, visit a lot of water leaf, the normal water leaf, Talinum. They visit a lot of it. They visit the flowers of the watermelon. If you see watermelon farms, how much pollinators there are there. These are farms that I've worked on before, so I know what I'm saying. And also, to clean your house, you don't necessarily, have to use harsh chemicals. You can also use mix a portion of vinegar, water, fruit slices to, clean, and it cleans well. Vinegar is a wonderful house cleaning agent. Also baking soda. These are things we readily have, rather than using, very harsh chemicals. So now I'll go to day-to-day things that we can do. And I will start with the 5 hours. Some say it's 6, some say it's 4, but I'm just going to talk on these 5 hours. This is something I've posted on my Instagram page before. I think I posted this in 2020 or 2021. So I decided to go and bring the 5 out to show us. One of the first things you want to do is refuse. You must not buy everything. It's not a must. It's not you must buy what you don't need. They are doing promo. You see this particular shop, they are doing clearance sales. They are doing promo. You go there. Apart from the fact that it may not be financially prudent, it's not also good for the environment, because you end up with stuff you don't need. Don't cook what you will not eat. Some of us are very, very family, friendly people. Want to cook. It's just you that want to eat the food, but you cook 5 cups of food. That is, at the end of the day, especially if electricity is not good, that food can go to waste. Don't make what you don't need. Basically, anything you will not use, do not, get it. Rather, choose sustainability. You can always reuse things. You can, and which I'll get to that. Also, reduce. You must not necessarily buy extra clothes. You must not necessarily, cook extra meal. Like I said, reduce and refuse are quite similar. You don't necessarily have to make extra things. You don't have to acquire what is not needed. Again, I'll go back to the phone. If I thought you have to upgrade to the next one, to sell the previous one, don't have too much phones. What are you? Those are things that contribute to effects. And sometimes some of these effects are not even direct, they are indirect. Because, for instance, factories make these phones. The factories that make this phone release a lot of carbon. There are different portions of the factory chain, of the value chain of these things, where production goes on. There's a different portion of production. And, there are different waste emitted at this level. The more you buy, and we are currently in a generation that is full of consumerism. We just want to consume, and it is widely fueled by these companies who just want to make profits. They want to make as much profit as they are getting. So we see them bombarding us with different things every day. And I won't lie, even me, sometimes I'm tempted. Shein, for instance, Shein releases new things every single day. And if you are not careful, you just want to tell them, oh yeah, take all my money, I want everything. But we must be careful with these things, because it can have a longer effect. It can have a ripple effect rather on the environment. And also reuse. You can always reuse. You don't necessarily have to wear your clothes once. You can wear your clothes again and again. And I know we Nigerians wear again and again. We don't wear once, but there are some clothes that we know, especially party clothes. Oh, and be aṣọ ẹbí that will buy, that will not wear again. And so why keep buying aṣọ ẹbí that you will not wear again? At the very least, think of giving that clothes out if you know you will not wear it again. Because we spend so much materials putting, and the clothes, the amount of carbon emission from clothing alone is a lot. Clothing emission, the emission from the clothing chain is as much as things that airlines produce. It is that bad. That's that clothing generation. And most of it, they say it's from the consumer hand. And I think that while the fashion chain, because I had this course I did that was in late 2021. I actually told the fashion industry, or the person that organized it, who is a fashionpreneur, I told them why we did this thing, that while it seems that research points to the fact that most of this carbon is released at the user end, it is actually hiding a lot of things, because you are trying to foster a lot of things on the users. But the truth is, whether we like it or not, there's still some carbon that is coming out of the user hand. If you want to use washing machine, for instance, you don't have to put 1 or 2 clothes, because you always have light or washing machine. Make sure it is quite a lot before putting it into it. And you don't necessarily have to use all those wash cycles that are longer. Even tender cycles can also wash the clothes. Don't throw away plastic also, always reuse. And I know this is something we do fantastically well in Africa. I saw a meme that says that ice cream bowls are not ice cream bowls in African homes. We do this a lot, and we can improve on these things. Also, recycling, whatsoever you cannot use, put all your waste together. Don't burn your waste if possible. Don't dispose waste improperly. Try to, have multiple bins, the ones that can be recyclable, the food compost, and the ones that are going to the landfill, if possible. I know realistically, this may not be possible, but I know, for instance, in Lagos, that the Lagos state government have improved in their waste management, especially for locations that are not developing areas. They have improved, and so we can work with them. So choose recycling. Also choose to recover, to support the waste companies. Let's recover what is recoverable. What can be recovered from the landfills. And while this is not something we can do directly, we can work with those doing it. Also, upcycling. Upcycling is a very, very good thing to do. You can let out your creativity. Everybody is creative. You don't have to be an artist before you are creative. That is just a myth. Everybody is creative to one level or the other. So think of what you can do just to reduce your waste. So now, more practical things we can do, especially day-to-day things. This is an example of something that was upcycled. Of course, we can see that this is a pipe, and it was just welded together, and this looks very beautiful. It looks so beautiful. I was the one that framed it. I mean, imagine if you have something like this frame that you put in your house. Everybody will keep asking you that, where do you buy it from? So More practical things we can do. I'm going to be dwelling quite a lot on this food, shelter, clothing nexus, because they say that's those things for survival. Avoid fast fashion, Shein, Temu, all of them. While I'm not bashing those complaints, because of this fast trend of fashion, a lot of those things end up in the landfill. They produce clothes that are not so quality and you can't wear for longer. When the clothes is subpar according to quality, you can't even wear it twice. And some things I do, and that is for me who can, sew a bit, is when I buy some of those things that are subpar, I try to turn them into something I can use for longer. And that is why sometimes we need to, learn some of these skills too, because it helps us in ensuring that we live in harmony with the ecosystem. Because one essential thing we must know is that the ecosystem does not end with us. After we are gone, the ecosystem will be here. And we need the ecosystem to serve generations to come. We need generations to come to enjoy the earth, to enjoy the environment, to see the beauty we have seen. Sometimes we hear some things from our parents that this is what has been, and we can't see it, and that is quite painful. Now imagine you want to leave that for your children. Imagine you want to leave it for people coming. Also buy in bulk. Buy in bulk. Apart from, and the wonderful thing, like again, I keep saying, is living in harmony with the ecosystem is a partnership that benefits you. Buying in bulk does not only help the ecosystem, it also saves you money. It saves you a lot of money. Buy in bulk where possible. Buy big, because the thing with buying in bulk, especially when it comes to the ecosystem, is that when you buy in bulk, there's just one packaging. I bought a 3 kilogram of sugar today. Imagine if I was to buy that sugar in 500 grams. Each of those 500 grams have their own different packaging, which is something. But with bulk, you just have one group packaging. So that is something that it does. Excuse me. Also, we should avoid food wastage. I already dwelled on that. And if you are in a temperate region, rather than, thinking you want to rely on heater a lot, and you have the opportunity to build. I know a lot of us are still renting. I'm just saying this in advance because in Jesus' name, all of us will build houses. So build more insulated houses that, can trap heat during winter, where you don't necessarily have to rely on heater. And, put off lights and other appliances when not in use. Put them off. They are not doing anything to your house in your advance. Then engage crafting using old items to design house, which is something that I said earlier, using this frame. For your clothes, the way you take care of your clothes is very important to add. If possible, hand wash. Every cloth has this label where they show you the proper care for the garments. The ones that are hand washable, hand wash them. And the ones you can machine wash, put a lot of them together in the machine, and you can use a shorter cycle. You don't necessarily have to use a long cycle. And also other things that we can do with regards to our work, internet, transportation, the shared transportation, walk if possible. Walking is good. As you're walking, you can even meditate, you can do a lot of, it's exercise. So we see again how it benefits us, even beyond the ecosystem, how it benefits us directly. You can work from home. Working from home is quite beneficial, for the ecosystem. Work from home. And also for your computers and other electronics, use them till you can't use them again, so that we can reduce e-waste. And when you finish using them, if possible, give it to companies that can scrap them and make them into something else, instead of just letting it go into the landfill. Then you can reduce data consumption, and all of these things are things to ensure that we don't harm the environment as well. And I must say this is something I frequently say. Yes, it is true that there is no how we won't do one thing or the other that directly harms the environment. But we must be conscious to keep reducing those things every day. And another thing we should also know is the fact that we as humans are also part of this ecosystem. So even though our living style might look artificial, it is also part of the ecosystem. So what we must, and that was why in the beginning I said, we are not saying don't build houses. We are not saying don't buy cars. but as much as possible, do it in a way where the other animals and other things in the ecosystem can thrive and perform their own services, because we are living in harmony. And this onus is on us because we are the ones on the higher level. We are the ones who have the ability to think. We are the ones who can control what we do. So which means that we can do things to ensure that there is a balance between what we are doing and the ecosystem. And that is why it is us who have to live in harmony with the ecosystem. Yes, prey will still be consumed, because even naturally without humans, a predator will still eat a prey. But there is a way nature balances itself back. But when humans, tamper with the ecosystem, the way we tamper with it is such that nature cannot balance itself quickly back, because we do too much damage. So what we can do is to ensure that in living, because yes, we must live, we must ensure that this damage is minimal. And lastly, we'll talk about this book, which you all can download. The Clan Initiative, Ayomide now was also part of this book, which we co-authored. What we did basically in this book, not just both of us, there were a number of authors on this book. What we did basically was to adapt a toolkit which was done for Europe, and to adapt it and to show us practical things we can do to live sustainably. Because when you live in harmony, you're also living sustainably. And sustainability is the fact that, we want things to last longer so our generations can meet it. Conservation is not something that just one person must do. It must be something we all do so the generations to come meet it. And when they meet it, because of the conservation lessons we have left for them to see, they too can take it up and continue it. That's why books like this and talks like this are good. And I'm going to talk about something else related to this. Now, get on the train and invite others to. It is not something one person must do. And this is something I'm so passionate about. We want others to walk the talk too. So, but first of all, it starts from you. Walk the talk. All these things you read, what can you do? Which one is, I know we tend to say, there's nothing I can do, but look at everything. There's always one thing you can do. Start from that one thing. Once you start one thing, you see another thing you can do. You see a third thing, you see a fourth thing. Just start from the list of the actions that you can do. Then, when you walk the talk, you show the benefits. Once people can see the benefits of doing it. And like I said, living in harmony, a lot of times, people just don't know it also directly benefits us. See the way we saw a lot of financial prudence in our thing. It also directly helps our health. People who live in villages have access to fresh air. So if you who lives in the city have the same thing that makes them have access to fresh air, it has benefited your health. So show the benefit, because the truth is, most people will not walk the talk with you if they don't see the benefits. And it's just human nature, we understand. Then share on social media. Let everybody know what's about. Share if possible. Social media is such a powerful tool that you can use. And on this note, I want to say thank you so much for having me. And if there are any questions, you can ask me here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this wonderful section. We do appreciate it. I will start from myself. I have a question. Thank you for the section. Particularly, I'm interested in the gardening, but the gardening bit of part of conserving and doing your part to live in harmony with the ecosystem. But as it is, it's still stay in a rented apartment and all. So I would like to ask that how can I practice gardening when I know that I don't have a house, a house to myself, I share apartment, I share the compound with neighbors. What can I do?
Okay, the thing is, there are some indigenous plants that can actually grow in buckets that don't need deep roots to grow. We can start with those. A lot of our vegetables can grow in buckets. Your water leaf can grow in a bucket. Water leaf is even a weed. That one grows everywhere. I recently did part of my field work for my PhD involved me planting cucumber in buckets, and I actually reproduced cucumber from buckets. And people at first were skeptical and saying, "Will you be able to grow reproduce cucumber?" And we were able to do our field work. And there are also other plants. There are also other plants like that that can. There are also other plants like that you can grow in buckets. There's this woman on Facebook that helps people, that people pay to help them. She's a very big woman in the sustainability scene in Nigeria, and she really does something like that. I'm trying to remember her name now, but it skips me. If I remember, we can. Then also, tomato can grow in a bucket. Pepper can grow in a bucket. A lot of the herbs can grow in buckets. Parsley, all those things can grow in buckets. It just involves you planting. And you have fresh food, for instance. They can grow in all these paint buckets. So, and also you see how you can reuse all those buckets that you want to throw away. You just take, pour sand inside, pour water, use them, and plant again. So that's it.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. So while we wait for anyone that has question, does anyone have question? Because for me, I have a lot of takeaways, like a lot. The first thing that stood out for me is we are not isolated from the environment. We are not. We think that we are living in another world. No, we are living in this earth together. We are all here. Anything that happens, the good and the good and the good. Let me use the word, but it happens to every one of us. So this is very very a very strong point. And I also want to quickly talk about, you mentioned something about doing what we can, how we can do it, and it's not like doing our part. I want to come in from the aspect of waste from the waste management sector aspect. You mentioned something that when we do it, it benefits us, right? So I look at it and tell people that try to segregate your waste, because when you do that, the first thing first, the benefit comes to you because it just reduces the rate at which your bin gets full, and with that you are not being charged as you're supposed to be charged. Instead of you to get a full recycling bin or waste bin, like get it filled for a month. If you really sort your waste, you take out the recyclables, the plastics that even take space, you realize that it gets filled in 6 weeks instead of 4 weeks. And this is a benefit that is accrued to you in as much as you are trying to make sure that the environment, like reducing the waste going to the landfill. But this, you are also playing a part. And also, I see that there are benefits to these things. In Nigeria, a lot of our recyclables have been you trade it for something, you trade it for cash, trade for incentives. So if you sort your waste and you have like a kg of plastics as low as some people do 100 naira. But if you're not even motivated with the money, by the money, you have people around you, maybe your gate man or maybe the woman that washes your clothes or something, sort it and give it to her. She use it for something more beneficial. She can gather it together, trade it for cash. The credit is 500 naira, 600 and 1,000 naira. It's something that she can use to feed herself or get recharge card or something. And with that, you are even helping someone and you are reducing what goes to the environment. I keep telling people that for this aspect of waste, we can't wait for the government. We have to do our bit. We have to do our part. If everybody sorts their waste in the house, to at least to a large extent, what's the waste that's going to end up in the landfill is going to be little. We have circular economy, everything is going, the closed loop, everything is going back, and we are just helping the environment and helping ourselves. So this sector, your section today has been so impactful. And I also saw know something about the ecosystem does not end with us. We have our children, we have our younger ones, the children, the unborn children. We can't say because we are here now, let's live everything the best life, let's wear the best clothes and just forget that we have people generations coming ahead of us that still will dwell in this ecosystem with us. So this is such a powerful section, and We really appreciate your time. Please, does anybody have question, please? Let's ask her question. She's here. Don't worry. You can ask her all the questions you want to ask her now. Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much, and thank you so much, Ibukunoluwa, for this very insightful session. I I know you are a big insect conservationist, so I would like you to shed a little bit more light on that, about how insects have like non-trivial impact on we as humans and the ecosystem. I remember like when we started short videos before it became a webinar, I think the first topic you talked about was like insects and bees.
Yeah.
So I think it would be interesting for today's participants to understand the impact or importance of insects in the ecosystem. Thank you.
Okay, okay, now you want me to talk. So insects are not, as small as you think. Insects have a lot of roles that they play. And the thing about insects is they play a lot of ecosystem services. There's pollination, there is parasitism, there is a lot of roles that they play. And for me, I look at the pollination services. And basically what they do in pollination, which is something I've explained earlier, if you miss it, is that they help plants in their reproduction process. Because if plants cannot do this reproduction process, then it's a very simple thing. Now, remember the field work I said I did with cucumber. What I simply did was to bag the female parts of the female flowers of those cucumber. And by bagging them, no insect was able to touch them. And what happened? There was no fruit that was produced. That was simply what happened. Because there was no way it could reproduce on itself. Because on a single flower for cucumber, now some other plants have different, like I said, we have some hermaphrodite flowers. But for cucumber especially, the flower, while the plant is hermaphrodite, having both male and female flowers, the female flowers cannot reproduce without the help of getting the pollen from. So if you bag a female flower, for instance, it's not going to be pollinated. So that is an example. And imagine if there is no insects to aid pollination of all the cucumber in the world. That means there will really be no cucumber for us to eat. That is an example. Now, in terms of parasitism, while there are some things that we humans, we think that, oh, why are they killing each other? Those are things that help the ecosystem to balance itself. Because you see, in insects, for instance, insects practice the reproduction strategy whereby they give birth to a lot more because they know survival is slim. Unlike humans and big mammals who give birth to maybe 2, 4, 3, and have a longer gestational period, these things can lay as much eggs. They lay eggs in hundreds of thousands because they know of the hundreds of thousands, maybe just some will survive at the end of the day. Or is it those that when they mate, they die? So that's the kind of reproduction strategy that they do. And that is also survival because they've made themselves available for if they are parasitism. There are some insects, for instance, that are parasites, like the Vesponica. This Vesponica germanicula. There's this insect, the hornet bee. The hornet bee is a parasite that, that invades things. And while parasitism looks like, oh, it is killing other things and all of that, what essentially happens is those things help to balance the ecosystem, same as the predator-prey relationships. And those are ecosystem services that help to balance the ecosystem. So insects are not just insects. Because if you kill an insect, for instance, that insect might be the food of another insect that you now need directly. While some of them may not impact you directly, let me make it more simple. So for instance, some of these insects are eaten by birds. Now, some of those birds are pollinators. So if you kill the insects that these birds feed on, how will they pollinate? One of the reasons why, there was a lot of toxicology, people started to see that there's a lot of chemical pollution is because of some birds. I think those birds were in Switzerland. There's a woman that found out she just noticed that those birds were dying. And what caused them to be dying when they found out is that there was a pollution that killed all the things they eat and was not even also affecting them. And that was what shed the light on environmental toxicology. I've forgotten the name of a book written by a woman, because that was the thing that really bettered environmental toxicology. Why? Because the food had died. So those are complexities that happen. So a mosquito is not just a mosquito. It can be food for something. And if that thing relies solely on mosquito and you kill all the mosquitoes, what will that thing eat? So in basic terms, it's just like this. The ecosystem is connected to one another. That is one thing, again, I want to say. As humans are not isolated from the ecosystem, everything in the ecosystem is also there's no isolation anywhere. So if there's something happens in one part of the chain, or one part, it's going to affect everything, whether directly or indirectly. Yes, Rachel Carson, thank you so much. So that is so I think I've been able to give you a good breakdown. Is there anything you'd like to hear, Ayomide? All right.
No. Thanks. That's fine.
Yeah, thank you. I just feel like you should just keep going on. It's such an interesting topic, and I feel like you should just keep telling us and giving us more information about it. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for this insightful lesson we've learned today. Does anybody have questions? If you don't have questions, please, this is Klein Initiative. And thank you for first time out here. Thank you so much for joining. And we also want to thank our beloved guest today. Our mom is she joined in today. Thank you so much, Ma, for joining us. We appreciate it. So please can kindly follow us on Instagram, our Klein Initiative. We are also on LinkedIn, and we are on YouTube. If you want replay of every of the webinars, you see us on YouTube. You can go back to strengthen your knowledge, or recollect things that you really want to remember, learn further. Thank you so much for this wonderful section. And I don't know if Ayomide has anything to say. Yes, the YouTube link has been dropped. So in the chat section, you can follow us, check up on the past ones, and also for people that joined in late, you can go to the link to catch up with what Ms. Ibukoluwa taught today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I don't have anything more to say. So the meeting is currently being live streamed. So yeah, it's being live streamed on YouTube at the moment. So after the webinar, you can also watch the replay. Thank you so much, Ibukun. Thank you for this very insightful session. So if there are no other questions or comments, so yeah, we can probably call it a wrap or wrap it up for the month of March. All right. So see you next month in April for another webinar. Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. Bye.
Welcome. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
And in addition, the two kits, the link of the two kits on for environmental youth, it's already shared on the chat. You can take time to learn one or two. Yeah, because one of the plans, one of our major plans in Klein Initiative is to educate people. So you can go to the links that have been shared. You can copy them now before the end of the program, the webinar, and read up one or two things, gain one or two experience. Thank you so much. So yeah, out.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye.